Welcome back to rLounge, people of the space. Gaining family should be a joy, and most of the time it is. There are times when no matter what you do, blending your families just won't work though. The evil mother-in-law is almost as famous as the wicked stepmother in stories about dysfunctional families. Today, we share stories that will either make you count your lucky stars or feel like you're not alone. Up first, a mother-in-law who deserves nothing but coal. How I ruined Christmas at the in-laws. My ex-mother-in-law set a price limit for gifts for all the kids at $10, except when it came to her daughter's kids. She got them games, clothes, electronics, etc. She has 3 sons and 1 daughter. The daughter and her kids are treated way differently. The steps have it even worse. They're not allowed in any family pictures. Not even the kid her oldest son adopted. Her reasoning is that she deserves pictures of her actual grandkids without other people's kids. Anyway, I knew the limit was $10, but I figured since she broke it, she showed me their favorites gifts, that there's no reason I couldn't. Her favorite grandson had a Nintendo DS. He'd never let his adopted cousin play with it, and was always rubbing it in his face. So, I got the other kid a DS and some games. Cue the hysterics. When he opened the gifts, he was over the moon excited. She ran to her room and slammed the door. She swore I ruined Christmas. That I knew there was a limit and did it to A, make her look bad, and B, to pick on her other grandson? That was the last Christmas I ever attended at their house. By choice. They're all terrified of her. Update. Mother-in-law is proud of being evil. My husband was 24 when he died in a workplace accident. He hadn't seen nor spoken to his mother in over a year. She lived 4 hours away. The very first words out of her mouth when my sister-in-law called her was, "We're going to sue them for everything we can get." Sister-in-law was disgusted and hung up when she began talking about what she'd buy. They had a lawyer that started calling me hours after his passing, wanting me to sign away the right to litigation and give it to them. He was nice at first, then became so threatening I had to get a lawyer, and my lawyer had to threaten him with jail time to get him to stop. I met them in person for the first time at the funeral. She walked in complaining about it being the day before Thanksgiving when she had cooking to do. She then introduced herself and grilled me about whether we were legally married. She was furious that we were, and that I was pregnant, insinuated that I was faking. According to her, one boy in her family is always sterile and her other son had kids. This is really long, so I'll just give you a highlight reel. She interrupted the guy from his company when they tried to talk about me, and the minister when he was talking. Kept pointing at herself and saying, "Over here, I'm the mama. I had him 24 years. She only had him a year. Now she's going to get everything." Bragged to the minister that she kicked him out on his 18th birthday because her benefits for him stopped. Brought her self-proclaimed private investigator's son-in-law with her. Asked the funeral director to allow them to photograph the body. He called me. I said no. Her behavior was so outrageous that the minister and the funeral director took me aside and warned me not to trust them. She came to see my son once after he was born. Was surprised that I wouldn't agree to allow them to take him home with them for the summer, and also wouldn't allow them to gift him a racist onesie. Haven't heard from them in 15 years. She did have her husband message me 5 years ago to tell me she couldn't accept me dating again. I told him I didn't care what she accepted. Wow. Evil definitely isn't a word to be thrown around lightly, but your ex-mother-in-law definitely lives up to it. She sounds like a horrendous woman, and I'm so sorry you had to be subjected to such negativity, even if for a short period of time. You were right to separate yourself from that. Moreover, I'm so sorry to hear about your loss. It makes sense that your husband had distanced himself. In regard to your ex-mother-in-law, it takes a different kind of person to not want to memorialize your own kids in photos. The fact that they are not her biological children should make no difference. She took on the role as mother as soon as she set eyes on them, brought them into her home, and called them her own. Being a mother means that she has a responsibility to show unconditional love to her children, no matter what. However, it sounds like mama is just a word to her. She has her own agenda. The best thing you can do in this case is be the best mother you can be to your son and fill the world with love and light. Unfortunately, it's clear that the world will not see such beauty from your ex-mother-in-law. What are your thoughts on this mother-in-law? Would you describe her as evil? We want to hear what you have to say. The first community response comes from RayRay6672. Dang, good riddance. I am sorry your child shares DNA with her. I am sorry for the loss of your dead husband. I am sure you are much happier without them in your life. Next reaction from Longjumping 23357. Wow, that's all truly terrible. I'm so sorry she was so awful at a time when you lost your husband and your child lost a father. I hope you and your child are safe and well, making a life far away from her. The mother-in-law in our next story Seems to love the taste of her own foot in her mouth. Mother-in-law keeps talking to my husband when she thinks I can't hear them. This is a long story, but as some background. My husband, male 26, and I, female 24, have been married about a year and together about 4.5 years. My mother-in-law has not always been particularly nice to me and is very over the top with my husband and his brother. An example of this being her forcibly putting about 3 tablespoons of lotion on my husband's hands when we were dry and then awkwardly trying to rub it in while I looked visibly shocked. This is the sort of behavior she always has with them. Her attitude towards me is borderline competitive, and she is very calculated in making her comments seem more innocent than they are. An example of this being the first time I visited her home. About 8 hours away, I got bad food poisoning and was miserable. My husband, boyfriend at the time, tried to comfort me, and she warned him not to get close to me so he didn't get sick. I was not contagious, again, food poisoning. Moving on to this weekend for Easter. I am 20 weeks pregnant with our first child. I, at this point, thought mother-in-law had moved on. She is very excited about the baby, etc. It begins with her telling us we don't care about our baby because we aren't planning on giving her a family name, and her saying, "She's going to be so happy later on when she finds out you didn't care enough to give her a meaningful name and instead picked one you just liked." To which I replied, "Good thing we are naming her and not you." As we exited the car, she thought I wasn't able to hear and berated my husband saying, "On the way back, I'll just sit and keep my mouth shut," guilting my husband into apologizing to her. The next day, while I'm in the bathroom getting ready, I hear her quietly trying to convince my husband to get himself a spare bed in a different room from myself and the child, so we don't disturb him at night. She actually was suggesting that he leave me alone with a newborn so that he could get his important sleep. At lunch, on this same day, she turns to my husband and says, "So what baby names do you like?" As if we had not already had this discussion. My assumption is that she thinks I am somehow brainwashing him into agreeing with me, and her solution for this is to try to start a fight in a crowded restaurant. Luckily, he didn't even acknowledge her, and I changed the subject. On to my final issue. I have told his mom over and over that she can come stay with us about 3 weeks after the baby is born, and that is when my husband will have to return to work. While I'm in the shower, I catch the tail end of a conversation where she is offering to come immediately after the baby is born to do my husband's laundry, cook, and take care of him. No mention of me or the baby, just an offer to take over the stuff I normally do around the house. As soon as I come out of the bathroom, she immediately stops talking and gives me a deer in the headlights look. What do I do to fix this? I'm not going to keep getting treated like this, and my husband is trying to stand up to her, but when he does, she guilt trips him into apologizing. I think it's very kind of you to offer your home to your mother-in-law after your baby is born. However, I think you should strongly consider not having her around at such a time. Although the help will be nice, even if it's just laundry and such, her presence might just be too stressful to you while you're healing. I think it might be best to start creating stricter boundaries. Perhaps even start to acknowledge what you're hearing her say to your husband. She will go as far as you let her. Once you start putting your foot down, she will start putting her foot in her mouth. What are your thoughts? Would you approach your mother-in-law if you could hear what she didn't want you to? Our first reaction comes from Happy Cat Lady 1982. You sit her down with your husband and tell her exactly what will and won't be happening. You draw hard boundaries now as a team and tell her cornering her son will not change anything. If you don't, she'll walk all over what should be a happy time and ruin it for you both. Next thought from Apart Locksmith 1. To be fair, if your mother-in-law wasn't constantly trying to undermine you, I might be able to see the good she's trying to do for her son. The fact that everything she's trying to do is to the detriment of OP, I agree she shouldn't be too close after the baby comes. Dear husband, if that woman is in our house when I return from the hospital, the baby and I won't be. This is not an idle threat. I heard your mommy scheming to come take care of you, and I'm telling you now, I will take the baby and walk away permanently if I so much as sniff her perfume. She can come when the baby is 3 weeks old, as agreed. If she is successful in manipulating you, take it that she is getting you back, because I won't keep you. Seriously, OP, be obnoxiously clear here. Tell him what friend or family member you have on standby to help you escape if his mother invades your home. Also, have him read The Lemon Clot essay, by which I mean read it aloud to him, to give him some idea of what you're facing into postpartum. The OP replies, "This is basically what I told him, that I can see why he might think it's innocent, but the fact that she is going out of her way to do this when she thinks I can't hear her is very intentional. It's so bizarre because when he isn't around, she is so pleasant and nice to me. She calls me frequently regarding the baby, but then when she is here in person with both of us, she turns into a monster. When I have tried to shut it down in the past, she uses the 'I just have my foot in my mouth' excuse, which clearly always works for her, as I have never seen anyone be able to hold her responsible for the nasty comments she makes. I asked my husband to take a step back and really analyze her comments, particularly when she was saying we must not care about our child if we pick a name that doesn't have some significance. I explained that I don't want anyone in my house while I'm postpartum, that it is going to negatively affect me. I have set my boundaries with my own family, not nearly as extreme, just normal things. And he just seems afraid to do so. Or when he does try, she guilts him so much that he then backtracks and apologizes. My explanation to him was that confrontation is not often wrapped up neatly with everyone happy. It is about making your boundaries clear. Next up, heavy is the crown. My mother-in-law keeps referring to my child as her baby. I, 30 female, was out to dinner on Friday night with my in-laws and a couple of their friends. Michael, a friend of my father-in-law, asked me how my son is. As I was mid-sentence, my mother-in-law cut me off and said, "My baby is doing so much better." Here's also some dot-pointed snippets of our interaction that occur almost every day. "Hello, my baby. Has your mummy been looking after you well? Where's my baby? Why can't I see my baby today? Did my baby miss me? Oh, my bubba." I'm not sure if it's an American thing to refer to the grandchild as their baby. I'm from Australia, and it's so weird. She wasn't in labor for 36 hours and pushed it out of her "see you next Tuesday." Would love to hear if you think it's normal. I've heard of grandparents calling their children "my baby" before. It's not entirely unusual. Most of the time, it's harmless and comes from a place of love. If you have a history with her where she has tried to intentionally step on your toes, then I would say that she's definitely trying to maintain some sense of control over you. I think it would be best to start to correct her when she says that next time, or reinforce the fact that it is your child. Overall, it sounds like she needs to be reminded where she stands in the family now that her role has changed too. She's a grandparent. There's been a clear power shift. You're the new mother. You wear the crown. Make your intentions clear. She'll back off in the end. Our first reaction comes from Lissy V. "How's my baby? He's fine. Work is getting pretty hectic, but he's keeping on top of it. When can I see my baby? Well, he's over at XYZ friend's house at the moment, but I'll get him to call you when he gets home." And walk away. Next thought from Glum Asparagus. Every time she goes "my baby," direct her attention to her child, your significant other. Bonus points if you do this in a group setting, like what you described in your post. One more thought from Bride of Gibbs. As well as making the point that dear husband is her baby, tell him. What does he say? I personally recommend this. "Mother-in-law, I am not willing to tolerate your calling my baby your baby. Every time you do it, I will end the visit. Keep your keys. Walk out with your child. Put the phone down." It's more powerful if dear husband backs you up, but you don't need him to support you. It's a bit crap that he hasn't shut her down already. You'll need to do this at least twice. Go for it. Thank you for joining us here at rLounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss our next video. As always, we value you. If you've had feedback on today's content, please let us know in the comments below. See you soon.